Hey guys, it's Adam, back with a brand new episode of Living in Denver. This week, it's going to be a little bit different than what you might be used to. I'm actually sharing with you my top 3 worst neighborhoods in all of Denver. This video is going to be a little bit different, so I'm excited to share it with you. Stay tuned. All right, so as I said, welcome back to a brand new episode of Living in Denver. Before we get started, all that info that's down below, I would love the chance to connect with you guys, so feel free to reach out, even if it's just a quick text message. I know there's a lot of value I can provide you guys, even if you're not seriously considering moving to Denver at all, or maybe not for another year or two. So regardless of your situation, I would love still the opportunity to connect, so feel free, reach out with all that info down below. And don't forget, also hit that like and that subscribe button. Every week there's brand new episodes coming out. I want to make sure you guys are the first to receive them. But as I said, today's all about the top 3 worst neighborhoods in all of Denver. Excited to get your personal feedback on this after you watch the video. So feel free to reach out and leave some notes in the comments down below and let me know what you think about these suggestions on what I think are some of the worst neighborhoods. And maybe there's a few you'd like to provide me with to include in future episodes. All right, so as we get going on the video today, I just wanted to also point out that there are several websites that I've used in gathering some of the data and statistics to make the argument today on these 3 neighborhoods. I'm gonna go ahead and put those different websites here on the screen just so you guys have a better feel for some of the places you might also want to start looking into and using for your own research when considering different parts of Denver. On a lot of different videos I make for you guys, I always include niche.com. That's a great one for school districts and different ratings with individual schools and school districts. So definitely check that one out. There's also one called Road Snacks, which I thought was really cool. I actually never found this one before, but they had some really valuable info, so make sure you check them out. And when it comes to crime statistics, a great website for that is Denver Crimes. That one's available as well. And then these last 2 that are also worth checking out. The first one is called Area Vibes, and then the other one is called Only in Your State. So I'm gonna put links for all of these in the show notes down below, but just wanted to, again, share some of these additional resources for you guys to check out when deciding what may or may not be a good fit for you here in Denver, Colorado. So in no particular order, the first of these 3 worst neighborhoods in Denver is gonna be East Colfax. So I'm a Colorado native of 40 plus years, and Colfax has always been the staple in our city for a lot of different reasons, good and bad. On the good side of things, on the western end of Colfax, you've got some great stuff like Colorado Mills Mall and also even the brand new, or I should say newly renovated, Casa Bonita. So there's lots of great stuff on Colfax, in my opinion, more on the western side of Colfax. However, on this video today, what I'm sharing with you is specifically the worst neighborhood being East Colfax. So East Colfax is east of downtown, and it really is that stretch of Colfax from Colorado Boulevard over to Quebec Street. And one interesting thing I do also want to point out is there are some really nice neighborhoods all around this area. So when I just mentioned those 2 streets, Colorado Boulevard and Quebec, you might have some familiarity with other neighborhoods close to here that are really nice. Montclair, there's several that are in this area. So what I'm specifically talking about when it comes to cross streets is 11th Avenue to the north, Colfax Avenue to the south, Yosemite Street to the east, and Colorado Boulevard to the west. So that's the specific neighborhood that I've identified today as one of these 3 worst neighborhoods. You know, as I mentioned with all those different websites that I did research on, you know, this reason that this is in the bottom 3 category today is crime rate, school system ratings, just some of those types of things, as well as just what kind of homes are available if you are considering moving out here to Denver. When it comes to the high crime rates, there are several types of crimes that I thought were specifically alarming, and that has to do with drug-related, theft, and just crimes that, in my opinion, are a little bit more serious and higher level of concern. This is also an area that, especially recently, has really been plagued with a lot of transient type community members and a lot of homelessness. So when you're driving in this area, you're definitely gonna see quite a bit of that. And you might even recognize this area from what's been in the news a lot recently in Denver about some of these Venezuelan gangs taking over apartment communities. You know, this is also very close to this area that we're talking about. So not only is it just, seeing a high level of, homelessness and crime and that kind of stuff, it's the type of crimes and just stuff that if it was me, would be pretty concerning and maybe enough for me to look elsewhere other than this East Colfax specific neighborhood. To give you some actual numbers, in that Denver Crimes website that I shared with you earlier, it actually ranked this specific area as 14.3 incidents per 1,000 residents, and that's for violent crimes. This ranked as 13th worst in all of Denver. As far as property crimes are concerned, it had 34.47 per 1,000 residents, and that actually was an improvement this year from the past year where it was at 40 for every 1,000 residents. So for property crimes, this is actually improving a little bit here. And when it comes to auto thefts, it was at 14 per 1,000 residents, which was worse than the previous year when it was at 13. So, a little bit up, a little bit down, but overall pretty high crime rates for all three of these in this neighborhood. If you are somebody that has a family or you're considering school districts, this Denver Public School District for East Colfax, it's kind of a middle of the road rating. It's at about C+. It has though fluctuated quite a bit when I've kind of been looking at this area in the past. The one caveat I would also say though is it does feed into East High School, which has been getting some pretty high ratings recently. So, the overall school district's a bit on the lower side according to niche.com, but East High School, just speaking from personal experience, knowing some friends and people that have gone to East High School, they've had good experiences there. So I wouldn't let that part of it deter you too much without doing your own research. All right, so going right into the second worst neighborhood in Denver, and this one, I was kind of mixed on whether or not to put it in here. And that's because I actually think this is an area that is dramatically improving. It actually does have some really good upside for potential when it comes to identifying value add properties and finding homes that are more affordable, but also have the ability to be improved. And if you held it for a few years, could see some appreciation. So what is the neighborhood? This number 2 neighborhood is going to be Montbello. So I actually just did a separate video on the 3 most affordable areas in Denver, and I included Montbello as one of those 3. So there is kind of a double-edged sword, or kind of a, 2 different ways to look at Montbello when it comes to this video today and whether it's really one of the worst neighborhoods in Denver. And I do want to just point that out, that this is an area that does have a little bit higher crime rates, and the Denver School District here isn't the best, but these are areas that I think are going to continue to improve. And part of that is because we are seeing a lot of growth and construction and just dollars being spent in this specific community to make it better and really to see that long-term play of it becoming a much more desirable place to live. And that's already the case with some areas that are surrounding Montbello. Again, like I mentioned earlier, with that East Colfax is kind of getting pretty close to this area, but also just to the north of here, very close, is also Green Valley Ranch. And this is an area that is mostly newer homes that are really great if you're commuting a lot to the Denver International Airport, or maybe even work, in the airline industry. These are homes that are great access to the airport, and this is also very close to Montbello. So there are areas around Montbello that are seeing a lot of growth and popularity, and I think Montbello will soon follow to becoming even more popular as well. But when it comes to Montbello, as far as where exactly it's located, on a Google map, you can see it from that perspective. On the north, you have 56th Avenue. To the south, you have I-70. Out to the east, you have Chambers Road. And then out west, you have Peoria Street. So similar to what I shared with you about East Colfax, when it comes to crime data from that crime website that I shared, for crime, we have a few different stats that I want to share with you. First off, the violent crimes were at 5.57 per 1,000 residents. This was very low on the list. It was 38th worst in all of Denver. And I believe that's out of 76 neighborhoods. So kind of middle of the pack when it comes to that. For property crimes, it was at about 20 for every 1,000 residents. Now is ranking at 67th worst. That actually was an improvement from 2023. And then with robberies, it was at the 35th worst, up from 48th last year. So all of these are seeing some improvements, which is a good sign. And then last but not least, auto thefts. These also were seeing improvements from the previous year. So, this is kind of the middle of the pack when it comes to the ratings. They're not like the very, very worst when it comes to crime, but they are still kind of, significantly in the middle of the pack, if not a little bit worse than that. So, Crimes specifically, that's not maybe the biggest reason why I put Montbello in this, bottom 3 category. I really wanted to put it here more, just almost as a way to kind of give perspective, because I've grown up in Colorado and in Denver my entire life, and as a kid going to high school 25 years ago, Montbello back then had a very big reputation as one of the worst parts of Denver, and I thought that would be worthwhile including it today, because if you are somebody that's familiar with Denver and maybe also has that same kind of misconception, or at least that stereotype of Montbello, I do think it still has its challenges, but it is going in the right direction. And with it being such an affordable place in comparison to other parts of Denver, I think it is maybe worth still considering for the right type of buyer. So keep that in mind. And if this is an area that you just have some concerns about or want to learn a little bit more about, feel free to reach out. All that info down below. Again, just reach out and I'd love to dig a little bit deeper into it with you. So when it comes to the Denver Public Schools and the niche.com ratings, it had Montbello at a C+. That's specific to the high school as well, Montbello High School. Because of this area though, and I think the demand for other types of education, one thing I think is really cool about Montbello is they also have a vocational training program here in the area, and it's the Montbello Career and Technical High School. So it's actually another high school that is an option for people that are realizing they want to get into the trades. And I think now more than ever, with all the AI stuff going on, some of these trade positions, I think are going to see some of the highest salaries and the highest potential going into the next, decade or two. So I think a great opportunity for a lot of people that are maybe in that high school age that wanted something a little bit more unique for their education. So to close out Montbello, I know I a little bit of a clickbait, I gave you guys some pros and cons. So it is still, for a lot of people considered one of the worst neighborhoods, but I do think there's a lot of opportunity here too. So just wanted to throw that out there. All right, and then the third and final area is another one that you may or may not have ever even heard of before. And I'm saying that honestly because when I was doing this research and just kind of trying to find some new areas to share with you guys, my audience, this is an area that I really did not specifically know about. I was very familiar with the area, but I did not know that it had its own name, and that name is called Sun Valley. Almost doesn't even sound like a name for a neighborhood or an area within Denver, but I did my homework, I double checked, and that is what they're calling it. It's Sun Valley. And looking at this from a map perspective, Sun Valley to the north is 10th Avenue, down to the south it's 6th Avenue, out to the east you have the South Platte River, and then out to the west you have Federal Boulevard. So this is a very small area, and it's historically always been one of Denver's poorest neighborhoods. So that was the main reason why I wanted to include it today. Is it has had its challenges over the years with it being very poor, not having much improvements being done to the neighborhood. But again, this is an area that is seeing a ton of improvements here in the next few years. I'm going to share more specifically about one of these things that's going on here that is making it so much better. But before I do that, with school districts, this is also in the Denver public school system, and they also had a C+ rating. So now to talk a little bit more about what the specific thing I want to share with you about Sun Valley, and that's the Sun Valley redevelopment plan. So this has been in talks with the government for a long time now, and it's finally coming to fruition. And basically, this is a Sun Valley redevelopment plan that's transforming the entire area into a lot more vibrant, mixed income community. So what they're doing is they're actually replacing 333 outdated public housing units with over 900 modern energy efficient units. And notably, there's actually 20% that will be market rate housing, and then the other 80% is going to cater to households that are earning less than 60% of the area's median income. So in a sense, it's like Section 8 housing, if you're familiar with that. But really what they're trying to do here is just provide a clean, safe, just more vibrant and upcoming neighborhood to people that might have a lower than average income and are trying to kind of establish themselves and get on their feet. So I think that's super cool and just pretty amazing that they're going from 333 all the way up to over 900 units. So they're also providing a significant increase just in the amount of housing available to residents here in the Sun Valley area. In addition to that, I also found through my research that they're doing over $30 million in grants from the Choice Neighborhood Initiative. And this is also supporting that revitalization with additional funding from public and private partnerships. So that total amount is actually estimated to be between $500 and $600 million over the course of this next 10 years. So this is going to be focusing mainly on the eco-friendly infrastructure, renewable energy solutions, and just creating some of these mixed-use zones. And again, this is where you have a mixture of both residential and commercial blended together to create this mixed-use zone. This is also going to include taller buildings, also really focusing on the density by having a lot of public transportation available right in this area. One other thing that I'll mention about this area that I think is great is its location. So you are in a really opportune, close proximity to downtown Denver, as well as Empower Field, which is where the Denver Broncos play. And there's just a lot of other stuff right out your back door if you live on this kind of western side of Denver. You know, I actually lived for a long time in Sloan Lake, which is just a little bit further north from here. And some of the most expensive real estate in all of Denver can be found in Sloan Lake and Highlands and some of these areas that are literally within just a mile or two of where we're talking about today with Sun Valley. So very, very close to a lot of much more higher expense type neighborhoods. And you also have the convenience of being so close to 6th Avenue. So as I mentioned, 6th Avenue is what borders the southern end of this Sun Valley development, Sun Valley area. And 6th Avenue is one of my favorite roads to use, especially if I'm in Denver trying to get up to the mountains. So if you live in the northern part of Denver, for example, you're more likely going to get onto I-70 West and take that straight up into the mountains. However, if you live on the southern side of Denver or in this area like Sun Valley, you can just hop onto 6th Avenue West, take it straight west, and it will eventually connect to I-70, and it's just a much more direct route to get up to the mountains quicker. Also, I will say that 6th Avenue West can get a bit bogged down with traffic certain times of the day. Specifically, what's so crazy to me is this is the one road more than any others where you have incredibly bad sun glare. So in the wintertime, in the morning, if you're hitting it at just the right time, you just get absolutely blinded by the sun, where in some cases they even have warnings where they're slowing down the speed. They also have a lot of accidents in this area. And I also sometimes get just a little bit scared on this road because you'll be going 60 miles an hour, and then before you know it, the traffic will be at a dead stop. So I'm always not only worried about hitting somebody in front of me, but when I pull up to that dead stop, I'm just always so concerned about the car, running into the back of me. So, not enough to not ever want to use this road, Highway 6, but just wanted to throw that little quick story in there too. So overall, I think Sun Valley is also a great area to check out. If you are looking to buy a home, I would say that this is going to have very limited options. It's not going to be an area where you're going to have, 15, 20, 30 different options to choose between. It might be an area that you're only seeing one or two choices, at least in the immediate future, while they're still really building out this new Sun Valley redevelopment plan. But again, guys, the reason why I put it on the top 3 worst neighborhoods is because it was, plagued with very, very low income housing for a long time. And with that, unfortunately, does come a little bit higher crime rates and some of these other just challenges that neighborhoods can have. So it might be an area that you haven't really thought too much about or even were aware existed. So if nothing else, hopefully now you know a little bit more about Sun Valley. But with all that said, you guys, we shared 3 neighborhoods that I think are some of the worst. However, I wanted to always put a silver lining to every video that I make and let you know that while they might be the worst neighborhoods, typically in some of these areas that are seen by the public as bad and some of the worst, that usually is where a lot of opportunity lies when it comes to fixer-uppers, adding value to properties, and giving buyers the opportunity to get in at a price point that maybe they can qualify for and afford, where other neighborhoods around Denver are just out of reach. So, with real estate, I think it's always so important to realize that it's just a progression over time. The home you buy today might not be your forever home. It might just really be that stepping stone to building up equity, adding value by doing some sweat equity, doing some work on the home yourself to add value to it. And then use that as a stepping stone to get to your next home, which hopefully aligns a little bit more with what your ideal, perfect dream home is. But even then, it might still not be perfect. It might still require another stepping stone until you find that perfect home that you might want to make your forever home. So I just wanted to always point that out, that sometimes the worst neighborhoods still have a ton of opportunity, and that might be the case with any of these 3 neighborhoods that I shared with you today. Before we close out the video, I just want to also remind you guys, I'll put a link down below in the video show notes, but I have a brand new resource. I made it for my out-of-state relocation clients, which might be you today watching the video, but also even if you are from Colorado, there's still a lot of value in this resource, so I recommend you guys still also download a free copy. But basically, I go through everything there is to know about Denver. My favorite restaurants, bars, parks, trails, as well as 20 of my favorite Denver neighborhoods. So if you guys are sick of hearing about the 3 worst, why don't you guys download that free copy and see what the top 20 are, with over 20 of the best neighborhoods in all of Denver that can just give you some comparison to some of these that I shared with you today. Hope you guys download that free copy. I definitely think it's worth checking out. And then one last thing, as always guys, hit that like and the subscribe button. I'd love for you to be the first to receive every new video that I come out with. It's on a weekly basis. I put a lot of hard work and time and energy into these, and I just want to make sure you're the first ones to receive these videos every single week. So with that being said, hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks for joining me on this episode today, and I look forward to seeing you next week on a brand new episode of Living in Denver. I'll see you then. Bye.